I did my presentation on how linguistics can manipulate. So first off, what is linguistics? So linguistics is the systemic study of the structure and evolution of human language, and it is applicable to every aspect of human endeavor. And so what is a cult? A cult is a social group that is defined by its unusual religious, spiritual, or philosophical beliefs, or its common interest in a particular personality, object, or goal, which we will be discussing how language is used for cults' benefits. And so how language manipulates and how it's done. So manipulation through language can either be intentional or non-intentional. And in the case of intentional linguistic manipulation, the subject aims at a definite result on the object of manipulation, whereas non-intentional is involuntarily and isn't aimed at direct results. And so as well as that, there are person-oriented manipulation, where the manipulator constructs the image of desired intent through language for their benefit. And then there's society-oriented manipulation, where the speaker doesn't construct the image of separate listeners, but where it creates a generalized image of a group as a whole. And a good quote from Amanda Montell, who wrote a book called Cultish, says, "We don't stop to realize that the words we speak, even our intonation, our pronunciation, everything from the broadest categories of conversation to the most microscopic unit of sound influences how we perceive the world." So our language reflects our surroundings more than just a dialect, but like the internal meaning, and you project your internal beliefs through the words that you choose, and also with the phrasing and sentence structure that is used. And language is how we interact with the world around us, and then if you use a limited language, it's a limited worldview. So how cults use language to manipulate? So in groups like any type of cult, you'll typically find a leader or a group in power at the top who will promise you that they have access to transcendent wisdom and the secret of life in the afterlife, essentially, and that you have the power to access this information if you join them, which them is a us and them behavior, which is used to seclude and create diversion between the cult and the outside people. And that's essentially the pitch that they'll use, and they'll use all of these strategies of conditioning and conversion and coercion, manipulation, and all that stuff to get you to believe that. And not only that, but they'll use limited vocabulary, like I said, in order to restrict the thoughts that your mind can think. And so they also follow something called the BITE model, which is behavior, information, thought, and emotional control. And again, they use language structure as well. And then, so this man on the screen is Jim Jones, and Jim Jones was a notorious leader of the cult called the People's Temple, which had around 3,000 to 5,000 people in it. And to keep a long story short, his life and more than 900 others in his cult died from a mass suicide through the drinking of cyanide-laced Kool-Aid. So Jim Jones was fixated on the sci-fi novelist George Orwell and how Orwell understood psychology from such a social point of view. And he even used what Orwell called newspeak, which is a controlled language style of restricted grammar and vocabulary, which is used to articulate subversive concepts such as self-identity and free will. And newspeak is a really confusing thing to think of, because without certain type of words to describe how you feel, it's hard to even grasp that like those feelings exist. And then I'm going to play a short video of Jim Jones giving a sermon or something.
But you cannot tell me and say, yes, something out there is loving. That you cannot say. Because if you go by the fruit of what it made, 2 out of 3 babies going to bed hungry, that's not love. To make people a certain color and then to suffer all their days long just because they've got beautiful black skin, to work for half the pay in this state of California, to pay twice the rent, to be cheated every time they move, to walk in a department store and have everybody waited on before you get waited on. No, that's not love. Whoever made you did not love you. I did not make you, but by damn, I will save you.
Okay, so he obviously has a very... Whoa, hello. Hold on. He very clearly has like a hyped up type of way of speaking, and he says like, I will save you, and all these type of claims that can really lure in the wrong type of crowd. So then, in this study done by Raymond Pallion and Richard Watson Todd, they calibrated the words spoken by Jim Jones from sermons given by him leading up to the mass suicide. And from this study, we see usage of words to draw an us and them type of mindset. And the linguistic features in the sermon of destructive cults show extreme non-religious ideologies imparted by the leaders to their followers with the extensive use of othering, intensifying, elaborating, and negating as communication styles. And the leaders thus lead their followers to isolation through the othering styles and control their situations and actions through negating styles. So, as you can see, he swears a lot, he uses negating, othering, intensifying. Two other cult leaders, Billy Graham's and Rick Warren's, and it kind of just tells you, like, statistics of what they talk about, which, again, include a lot of, like, ideologies and that sort of thing, which is a very isolating topic. And again, here are some more of Jim Jones compared to another cult leader, Marshall Applewhite. And again, a lot of crazy things talked about. And then, so when you hear the words mass meetings, enthusiastic distributors, mysterious terminology, relentless focus on recruitment, and positive thinking, your mind probably goes back to the cults that we just discussed. But in actuality, I'm talking about the modern practice of multi-level marketing schemes, or MLMs. But yet, all those are parallel to cults. So what an MLM is businesses that involve selling products to family and friends and recruiting other people to do the same, which are called MLMs. And a quote from Dr. Philip Ruiz says, "They promise you the world and all the flexibility that you want. They make it seem like this big secret that nobody knows about." And so it's basically a pyramid scheme. And as I previously mentioned, BITE stands for behavior control, information control, thought control, emotional control, which Douglas M. Brooks, an attorney who specializes in representing victims of pyramid schemes, agreed that that model is also a parallel to cults, and they also share the tactics of love bombing, deception, financial exploitation, and guilt, shame, and fear. So, why is this important? Well, linguistic manipulation is based upon mechanisms that compel the listeners to perceive verbal messages uncritically and facilitate creation of illusions and misperceptions impacting one's emotions and making them accomplish actions advantageous for the speaker. So, if nothing were to be done to address this issue at hand, we could all fall under the spell of a malicious linguistic manipulator. But we can solve this by education. So, according to workingpsychology.com, there are 4 key warnings to be aware of to avoid cults. Number 1, detecting the warning signs of cult influence. 2, asking key questions to determine if an organization is a cult. 3, knowing how to protect ourselves at meetings we suspect may be cult recruitment attempts. And 4, understanding deprogramming and exit counseling, which are the modern methods of escape. And in order for these tactics to be effective, we must also educate everyone on what the self-serving bias is. And as defined from psychology.org, this bias leads us to believe that we are immune to the influences that affect the rest of humanity. And with this bias enacted, some people won't even think to educate themselves on how to detect cults because this bias leads them to thinking that it wouldn't happen to them. And yeah, that is it.